This is the Leatherman Wave Alpha, Leatherman's newest multi-tool.
At first glance, this might look like the Leatherman Wave that you and I and everybody else already owns with just a fresh coat of paint. But if you take a closer look, you'll realize that Leatherman actually paid attention to what other people were doing with their Leatherman Waves, the modifications they were making, and they decided to make it official. The question is, did they make it better? Is it good, or did Leatherman just ruin a classic? I've been carrying the Leatherman Wave for the last 2 weeks, so here's the good, the bad, and the questionable. Let's do the damn thing. The Leatherman Wave proper needs no introduction. It's the multi-tool from the multi-tool company. It's their most popular multi-tool by far, and for good reason. And it should say a lot that other brands have started making one-to-one copies of the Leatherman Wave specifically. It's kind of a big deal. It's not only a classic, it's the perfect balance of performance, utility, and cost. But that didn't stop people from modifying the crap out of it. It is the most modified, hacked, and Frankenstein multi-tool out there. People add thumb studs. They change the blades out from aftermarket makers. The mods are endless for the Leatherman Wave. So Leatherman has been taking notes of all these modifications for years and decided, fine, let's make the Leatherman Wave for the enthusiasts, the ones that have modded theirs. Let's make that and make it official. So enter the Wave Alpha. Let's talk about what's new and what's different. The most obvious change here is the switch to G10. So no longer is it a full steel handle construction with frames that wrap all the way around the front. There are scales on the front and they are G10. They come in 3 different colors. This is the black and gold. It's called Obsidian. There's an orange one called Canyonland and then a green and orange combo called Cascadia. The G10 ushers in a slightly more lightweight tool. It's about 2/10 of an ounce. It's not a ton, but it also has a slightly smaller presence in the pocket. So in this dimension, front to back, it's a little bit thicker, but when you're looking at the profile like this, it's actually a little narrower because the tools don't protrude as far from the sides. One of the best things about G10 is not really the weight savings, it's the grip. So Leatherman went with a sculpted G10 on this, which means it's got layers to it and it swells and tapers in certain spots. That actually makes it a little bit more ergonomic when you're using it. Very little, but it does. And it makes it more grippy. The Leatherman Wave Plus and Wave have always been a little bit of a slick tool because it's just a slick steel, but this gives you a little bit of extra grip, which is very, very welcomed. I got a lot of questions about the G10 being durable and tough and not flexing. If you have all the tools closed, there's really not much flex at all, but you can see if you give it a good squeeze, you can bend that G10 just a little bit. Not very much, not at all, and it feels very tough, very premium. I would not personally be worried about G10 breaking or not holding up to the test of time. It's a tried and true, very, very durable material. One of the biggest and most important upgrades for the Wave Alpha is the blade. Leatherman opted here for a Wharncliffe MagnaCut blade. It is coated on all of them, and it does have a thumb stud, so it's very much like the Arc, but it's a different blade shape. I actually really like the blade shape a lot. This Wharncliffe is very utilitarian. It's probably my favorite Leatherman blade to date just because of the shape and the fact that it's a more premium steel. The thing that I don't quite understand is why Leatherman keeps coating all the MagnaCut blades. We all know by now that MagnaCut is highly corrosion resistant. Can it be rusted? Yes, but so can the rest of the tool being stainless steel. It doesn't stop it, and the coating on it just seems a little bit out of place to me. My guess is that it's just to designate that it's a premium blade, but I also feel like the thumb stud does that because if you look at Leatherman's lineup, the only things with premium or MagnaCut blades have thumb studs. So I feel like the coated blade is unnecessary, especially on a tool like this, the Cascadia, where the only black tool on here is the MagnaCut blade, whereas on the Obsidian, where everything is black, that makes sense, right? There's just 2 tools on the back. The file and the saw are not black coated. I kind of just wish that they would have left at least the Cascadia and the Canyonland with an uncoated MagnaCut blade. Alas, we have coated MagnaCut. It doesn't really change the function or anything. It's just an aesthetic choice, but for me, I wish they had left it off. While not a lot of people are going to complain about the addition of a premium steel blade on a Wave, something that people have wanted for a long time, the other major change on the Wave Alpha is going to be a lot more polarizing for a lot of you. And that new change is the addition of a very large pair of scissors. Anybody familiar with the original Wave or the Charge or many of Leatherman's tools, the scissors are like this afterthought inside the frame. You have to open the tool up, pull out these tiny little scissors, and they work okay. They cut, but they're not great. Now, on the Wave Alpha, the scissors have been brought to the outside. They're one of the 4 main tools accessible from the outside of the Wave Alpha. So the other question is, how well do they cut? Very well, actually. They're probably the most comfortable Leatherman scissors ever, although I wouldn't say they're the best cutting scissors. In my experience and my time with the Alpha and the Arc, I say the Arc actually makes cleaner cuts than the Wave Alpha scissors, but the Wave Alpha, because it has a longer arm on these scissors, is actually more comfortable to use and easier on the thumb, so it's a bit of a trade-off. But when you compare the Wave Alpha scissors to the original Wave and Wave Plus scissors, they're not even in the same ballpark. The Wave Alpha scissors are a massive improvement over the Wave Plus scissors. And that brings us to another change that comes from the scissors moving from the inside to the outside. On the Wave Plus, where the scissors are, they aren't on the Alpha, obviously, because they're on the outside. What is on the inside of the Wave Alpha is now a tool that wasn't on the Wave at all before, and that is an awl. And it's great. It's a redesigned awl. It's bigger than the one you'll find on the Arc. It has these like a double bevel, almost like a Yakote, like a Tonto, and it works pretty well. I personally am a huge fan of awls. I actually made a video about awls not too long ago and how useful they are, how overlooked they are. It's another really good tool that I'm happy is now on the Wave Alpha. Do I use an awl all that much? Not really, but having one when you need it is extremely helpful. I am a huge fan of an awl. It's really good at drilling holes in wood and plastic, scoring metal, scraping things. It's just a do-it-all kind of tool that I think people probably just don't appreciate enough in general. So despite Leatherman making the Wave Alpha for enthusiasts, listening to their feedback and picking those modifications that people were doing on their own anyway, it's still not a perfect multi-tool. There's never going to be a perfect multi-tool, and because of that, there are going to be some caveats with this Wave Alpha that are deal breakers for some people. One thing missing here that I've seen several threads on and that I didn't expect but did surprise me a little bit is that now that we're not dealing with this full frame which wraps from the inside to the outside, that's actually where the ruler is engraved on the Leatherman Wave Plus. On the Wave Alpha, that's actually where the scales meet the frame, so there is no ruler on the Wave Alpha. Originally, I thought maybe that's just because there's not enough room to make those marks, but that's not really the case at all. They could still be there, I believe. I feel like that's a really strange omission from a company that's making a tool for its enthusiasts who are known for modifying things. I feel like not having the ruler on there is such a small omission, but has a lot of impact. It's just a tiny little thing that wouldn't be that hard to do, and they just removed it. Not a total deal breaker for me at all, not even close, but it is something that you should know about and may be a deal breaker for you. Like I mentioned before, one notable thing missing from the Wave Plus to the Wave Alpha, because the scissors have moved to the outside, there is no fully serrated blade. For some people, that is going to be a massive deal breaker, and the funny thing is, some people will still want the Wave Alpha, and they're just gonna swap a serrated blade onto it. Like, I guarantee that's gonna happen, but there is no serrated blade on the Wave Alpha. And I know for a lot of you, that is a true deal breaker. The serrated blade is good for cutting natural fibers and cordage and plastic, all sorts of stuff. It's got a lot of uses. Me personally, I can't remember a single time I've ever actually used the serrated blade on my Wave. I carried a Wave for years, genuinely don't think I ever used the serrated blade. For me, I'm more of a scissors and a straight edge kind of guy, but here we are. Perfect multi-tool doesn't exist, right? But if you are upset because of all of these changes and you feel like the Alpha is going to replace the Wave Plus, it's not. The staple's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. The Wave Plus is here to stay. And the Wave Alpha, just think of it as an enthusiast's premium version of their tried and true tool. All of these upgrades and premiums come at a cost, a literal direct cost to you. The Wave Alpha is $200, and that's nothing to shake a stick at. That's $80 more than the Wave Plus, $50 cheaper than the Arc, which means, as far as price goes, it's actually very well positioned. That's a big hole for Leatherman, but they filled that now. And you are going to realize some of those upgrades. The premium blade steel with MagnaCut, high corrosion resistance, great edge retention. It's a great blade steel. Also, big scissors. You get to customize it a little bit by choosing your color. It's great. I actually really think it's priced adequately, but make no mistake, it is a premium Leatherman multi-tool. It is not meant to be a budget alternative to anything really. Maybe a cheaper Arc that doesn't have free technology. That's really what it is. The Wave Alpha is like a cheaper Arc with the Wave platform. It's perfectly positioned between the two. Now, something that a lot of people are going to be upset about and have been for the last couple of months, there is no sheath offered with the Wave Alpha, just you have to buy it separately. Likewise, there's no clip. So it comes just as it is. It does have a lanyard loop, just like the Wave, but it is in a different position. So on the Wave Plus, the lanyard loop was kind of hidden between the scale or the outside handle and the scissors. Now it's actually on the other side. It's in the same position on the handle, but on the other side of that tool. It's on the inside of the awl. It's not really hidden. When you open the awl, it kind of pops out. You'll find it pretty easily, but it does have a lanyard loop. Does not come with a clip or a sheath. In my opinion, for $200, I do think at least offering it with a clip would have been a really nice gesture. And let's focus in on that clip. There is a brand new clip from Leatherman launching alongside the Wave Alpha. It's the same exact size as the old Leatherman Wave clip, but it looks way bigger. It's got this presence to it, and in my opinion, it looks a little bit cheaper. The old Wave clip had some cutouts and some shape to it, and it looked a little bit nicer than these new ones. However, these newer clips are customizable. You can get custom engravings and colors and stuff like that on your clip. So if that matters to you, there is an option for that now. My personal opinion, I'm gonna be sticking with the older Leatherman Wave clip. But yes, they are totally interchangeable. And if you didn't like the wiggle from before, you're not gonna like it any better now. The wiggle is still there. And there's one last little update that's much smaller than a lot of the others, but it is notable. It's one that I've actually really appreciated having. And that is a thumb cutout or a thumb hole for the file and the saw. So now you can actually flick these things out with much more ease. Before, there was a little cutout in the handle and a notch, which you can still see here on the file and the saw. That notch, you would basically have to use your fingernail and get them out. You could kind of do it with your thumb, but it was really more of a two-handed operation. Now, because of the thumb holes, these are definitely much more like one-handed tools. You can flick these out much, much easier. So what about me and my experience with the Wave Alpha? I've been carrying it every single day for over 2 weeks now, and I've carried it in all 3 colors. I've put it through its paces. It's the only thing I've used and carried for 2 weeks. And I have to say it is a big improvement over the Wave Plus. I carried the Wave Plus for years, actually. It was my daily tool for a very long time before I ever even started this channel. I love the Wave. It's near and dear to my heart. I think everybody has a little bit of a soft spot for the Wave, but the Alpha is just a modern, improved version of that. And I think Leatherman knocked all of these changes out of the park. First and foremost, the blade. I love this blade. This is my favorite Leatherman blade to date, bar none. It's great. The action is great on it. And then the other big improvement, the scissors have been awesome. I really like the scissors on the Alpha. Even if I think the arc actually cuts a little better, the improved or increased cutting surface area and that longer arm on them does make them easier to use. I also really like the G10 a lot. It feels warmer, I guess, if that's the right way to put it. It feels better in the hand and just a little bit more natural, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I like the texturing because it gives it some grip, whereas the Arc and the Wave Plus don't really have a lot of grip. That's why I end up putting those skins on mine. Layering to it, the sculpting to the G10 just gives it some additional grip, and it just feels nice. It doesn't feel cheap. It feels premium. I do like it a lot. I'm not a fan of the new clip. It's not my favorite. I think it's fine. I like that you can do some customization to it, but I will be sticking with the older clip, no doubt in my mind. I also really appreciate the addition of the holes on the saw and the file. It does make getting to those tools a little bit easier, because even if I grab this out of my pocket and the blade is where my thumb is, I can still get to the file very, very quickly and easily. It's very easy to use this tool. The only thing, and this is the thing, this is the catch for me with the Wave Alpha, after using the Arc for so long, it's really hard to go back to the Wave. The free technology, one-handed operability of the Arc is just so, so nice that I still prefer the Arc. However, I actually like the awl on the Wave Alpha better. I like the scissors on the Wave Alpha better. I like the blade on the Wave Alpha better. And the can opener is something that I'm not gonna use a whole lot. I actually like this can opener even more because it has that notch for wire stripping, which is something I use. In my experience, there's one other thing that I've noted that doesn't happen, at least so far for me, with the Alpha, that is a very common problem with the Wave Plus. And if you've used a Wave, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say wave pinch. So the reason this happens on the Wave is because the knife, the straight edge and the serrated, they both kind of protrude out from the handle. And what happens is when you open these up into pliers, you can actually get a piece of your palm stuck in between the knife and the tool opposite it. And when you grip, you're gonna pinch your hand really bad. A lot of the time, it's gonna leave a blood blister. It sucks, it's inadvertent, but it happens. And on the Alpha, this hasn't happened to me once. And I have a good theory as to why that is. One, the knife no longer protrudes out. There's no serrated blade. Those are scissors and they don't protrude out. But also you have scales that go all the way up past the pivot and they create this little gap right where the palm of your hand is, and it doesn't pinch. I'm sure you could probably make it happen if you were trying, but it is so much easier to not do it with the Wave Alpha than with the Wave. As much as I love the Wave Alpha and have enjoyed using it, I'm probably gonna go back to my Arc, even if I like the tools on the Alpha better, which is a really weird conundrum. But I do think Leatherman knocked the Alpha out of the park. It is really great. I like it a lot. And who knows, maybe I will continue to use the Alpha. Maybe I'll switch back and forth or something, I don't know. But the Alpha is definitely a deserved upgrade to the Wave Plus. At the end of the day, the Wave Alpha is not a replacement for the Wave Plus. It's an evolution. It's a modernized, enthusiast-based, premium version of the Wave, and it's great. However, it's not gonna be the best tool for everyone. For some people, it's gonna be the best wave ever made, myself included. I think it is the best Leatherman wave ever made. But for some people, it's going to be missing that crucial tool to be a deal breaker, such as that serrated blade. For me, it feels like the Leatherman wave everyone's been asking for a very long time. A wave with a premium blade and some alterations to bring it into the modern era. But for whether it's better or worse depends on how you use it. I've given you my take. I think it's the best wave that Leatherman's ever made. But I want to hear from you guys. Do you think it's the best wave? Or did Leatherman unnecessarily mess with a classic? Tell me in the comments down below. And also, just for the debate, scissors or a serrated blade? All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.